Some of you may be aware that during my testing and review of Fujifilm's 48-hour free camera trial service, I chose an X-T5 with the kit lens that you got in the box. My reasoning is, as someone who is an X100VI or X100VI user, the X-T5 has always intrigued me. I love my X100VI, and I truly believe it's made me a better photographer. I owe it a lot, and I owe this channel a lot to that camera. However, like most people, I always do wonder, is the grass greener on the other side? Is the X-T5 a better camera and a better fit for me? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Running over the differences between the X100VI and the X-T5, internally, they are very similar cameras. There's not a lot of difference. I know that the IBIS is slightly better on the X-T5, and also you get a bit more of a satisfying shutter sound from the X-T5 rather than the more discreet shutter sound you get from the X100VI. But basically, under the hood, they are pretty much the same camera. So where do they differ? What actually makes them a different camera? And why would you pick one over the other? And why am I considering, or why have I considered picking an X-T5 now as an X100VI owner? Well, for starters, with the X-T5, you get a larger battery. Now, this comes with some obvious benefits. Larger batteries means you can take more photos and more video. Whilst I've actually praised the smaller battery that's found in the X100VI, and I've never really had too many issues, I have had times where I've had to conserve the battery life or bring an additional battery along with me. Now, whilst I was testing the X-T5, whilst it did come with a spare battery, I found that I was able just to use the same battery all day, every day without any issues. And you might be thinking, well, maybe you didn't take many photos or videos. On average, during my testing, I took about 3,000 shots per day and a lot of video footage. So I definitely put it through its paces and it managed to keep up. I didn't have to charge it throughout the day at any point. It managed from 9 o'clock in the morning all the way till 10 o'clock at night. So I was very impressed. And I don't think my X100VI would have been able to do the same without a battery swap or without needing to charge it. Another additional benefit of the X-T5 over the X100VI is the additional SD card slot. For me, I see this more as a spare backup. I don't think I'm ever going to need that much storage for my photos, as I predominantly am going to use it just as a photography first camera. However, if it's videography, that's a whole other ball game, and I can definitely see why the extra storage is nice, especially as a backup if you had corrupted files, etc. But for me, I'll probably just stick an SD card in there, more as a safety net if I, for whatever reason, take out my main SD card, forget to put it back in, or maybe on my other camera equipment. Bit of a tip, I use micro SD cards so I can share them between all my other devices, which is a nice little backup. So I could take it out and put it in another. It's just like a little storage place really for an SD card, but it's nice to have if you are a more professional user. You do, of course, with the X-T5, get a larger, more ergonomic grip out of the box. If you watched my giveaway a couple of weeks ago, I am always looking to make my X100VI more ergonomic. And it's interesting, I read a Reddit comment where someone did mention to me, why is everyone trying to make their X100VI like an X-T5? And I kind of, now I've tried both, I do see what they mean. Whilst the X-T5, in my opinion, does not have the best grip on a camera ever, it is far more improved and far more ergonomic over the X100VI. So again, if you're someone that shoots all day and tends to not want to, be putting your camera in a camera bag and be taking it out, you want to be holding it all day, you'll definitely appreciate the more ergonomic grip that the X-T5 has over the X100VI. Another different change and another new addition for me is that the EVF is at the center where your lens is. This is a first for me. All my cameras, the EVF has been over to the left. I can't really say there's much of a difference, or I notice much of a difference. I guess where your eye is looking is where the lens is, so maybe that does improve, but it's just different. Maybe it looks a bit better in my opinion, but again, it's a small external change. Another more prominent change, and something I actually do wish was really on my X100VI, is the fact that when you're shooting portraits, the screen can flip out. I find a lot of the times when I'm taking portraits at different angles, I struggle to actually look at the back screen and see what I'm looking at. However, with the X-T5, the screen flips out when you're taking anything in portrait, which is a really nice addition to get those different angles. And actually, I didn't know that was a feature of the X-T5 until I got it and tested it and reviewed it. So it was a nice surprise, and it's something I use all the time now, and I absolutely love it. And of course, the biggest, most obvious difference between the two cameras is the fact that the X-T5 has interchangeable lenses and the X100VI, as we know, has a fixed lens, which it depends on your needs for both, but we're going to get to that a little later on. Now, the differences between these two cameras may not realistically seem like a lot, but after using the X-T5 for around a month now and taking it on a European trip where it was the only camera I took with me, in practice, I've learned that the two cameras are extremely different. They do have their pros and cons, and we will be, like I said, focusing more on the X-T5 in today's video rather than a head-to-head of the two. But of course, as an X100VI owner, that is my reference point. But we're going to get into why maybe I have an X-T5 in that cupboard over there. Like I alluded to at the start of this video, the X-T5 as a camera has always intrigued me. I very much nearly bought one when I was finding it impossible to pre-order an X100VI or without paying a ridiculous resale price for one. I did, of course, manage to bag myself one on pre-order, and I didn't actually have to wait too long to get it in the end, so which was quite a nice surprise. It's interesting to me how I view both cameras. With the X-T5, I view it as a tool. It's a thing to be used. It's not a luxury item. Where it's funny, with the X100VI, I've always babied it. I've always thought about its resale value, or I've thought about it as an expensive accessory more than anything. I don't think about it as a tool. Now, of course, this is my mindset, and your mindset might be completely different, but I think it's just in how I use both cameras differently and how I feel about them, which does obviously make a difference when it comes down to the photos I produce out of them. I see the X-T5 as a workhorse, something to be used, abused, thrown in a bag, where the X100VI, I'm always trying to wrap it up, make sure it's protected from the elements, and look after it as best as possible. And whilst I fully understand the results I can get out of both cameras can basically be identical, and I also understand that the X-T5 is not a take it out in any conditions. It's not a more professional camera like the Fujifilm HS2. But to me, the camera just feels more robust. There's more to hold. I love the top dials that you get. I love the fact that I can switch what drive mode I'm in really quickly. Just the extra buttons you've got on the camera. It feels more professional compared to the X100VI. In comparison, I feel like my X100VI is more of a statement piece. People always comment on how good it looks, or they ask what camera I'm using. It fits a vibe. It's, you know, if you were wearing a nice outfit, it would look good as part of your outfit. And of course, it takes amazing photos. I've been using the camera for over a year consistently, haven't used any other cameras, and it has taken some fantastic photos, and it's also taken some quite big punishments, whether that be hiking in Madeira in a downpour, or taking it on many city trips where I've taken it to sand dunes where I have got sand in it, I've got rain in it, all sorts of things. And it is still held up till this day. But what does this ultimately mean for me? It's more of a mind shift change than anything else. It's how I view both cameras. As someone constantly wanting to take photography more and more seriously and more professionally, the X-T5 feels like it fits that bill better than the X100VI. The X-T5, because of its looks, feels like you will maybe be taken more seriously as a photographer, which does have its downsides. I think there are times where I've taken photos with my X100VI, which because of the look of the camera, I got away with it. The X-T5, especially with a larger lens, I think maybe I'd have been asked to not take photos. So the biggest elephant in the room when you're picking between these two cameras is the fact that the X-T5 and the X100VI are different in the fact that one has an interchangeable mount and the other is a fixed lens camera. Both have their advantages, both have their disadvantages. I've made it very apparent and made everyone very aware when I first got my X100VI. I was very worried that I'd made a mistake buying a camera with a fixed lens. I definitely don't think it's for everyone, and I see many people on Reddit regretting it and buying different cameras because they just can't manage the fixed lens focal length. With that said, however, as someone who wants to take photography more seriously, wants to become a more professional photographer, my goal whenever I go to somewhere new, especially if it's a long distance away or it's not somewhere I can easily return to, my main goal is to take as many photos as I can and take as many good photos as I can. A zoom lens or the ability to change lenses means I'm far more versatile as a photographer. Now this does have a catch-22. You can be too versatile and worried about what lens you're using and trying to change them whilst the scene is unfolding. However, as someone who hasn't used a zoom lens for over a year, going back to having that zoom lens and having that versatility and just instantly been able to punch into what I was looking at was amazing. I mean, during my Porto trip, I took over 3,000 photos a day. I think if you're someone who wants to take photography more seriously, having that versatility does matter and is something that I didn't think mattered as much as it did until I started using the X-T5.
Was it the top?
So I haven't actually done a video about my Porto trip yet, Porto in Portugal for those that don't know. I am going to, but you might have seen, for anyone that follows me on Instagram, that I have already posted all of my favourite photos from that trip. So do go check them out, do go like them, do go comment on them for me. I have to say, I think for me, in terms of photography, it's been one of my most successful trips ever in my lifetime. Like I mentioned just before, I've got 40 photos that I'm really happy with, and 10 of those that, I mean, I'd be happy to display them in an art gallery. I'm really, really happy with how they've turned out. And whilst I don't owe those photos exclusively to the fact I was using the X-T5, the fact I owned that camera and was using that camera definitely made an impact and made a difference to how I took a few of those shots. Another point to mention with the X-T5 is how ergonomic it was to use. There's no getting away from the fact that if you were walking for 20 kilometers per day, like I did, having a more ergonomic camera in your hand means you're going to obviously take more photos because it's on your person rather than needing to put it away because it's uncomfortable to hold for longer periods of time. And talking about keeping the camera actually in my hand all the time, another benefit about having the larger battery was mean I could keep the camera on for longer. What I normally do with the X100VI is I take the photos that I want, turn the camera off. With the X-T5, however, I just left the camera on. It did auto shut off now and again, but I just left it on because it meant that as soon as I saw something I wanted to take a photo of, it was in my hand, lift it up, take the photo and move on. And it's just those little things, and it's not like the battery life suffered because of it. But again, with the X100VI, I think the battery drain would have been more pronounced and I would have probably had to keep swapping batteries. So again, it's little things like that if you're going somewhere with the intent of taking photos, it's not just the sort of side project, it does make a difference to the photos you get and probably to the amount of photos you get. Performance of the X-T5, I can't really complain here. It's not any better or any worse than my X100VI. We know that the autofocus is not on par with the likes of Sony. However, I think people like to bash on the autofocus performance of Fujifilm cameras, but as far as I've been using them, they work absolutely fine. I only use auto eye focus or auto eye detect when I'm taking a portrait of someone, and that always works fairly flawlessly as long as they're not like sprinting around. So I can't really complain about the performance. And of course, you have to remember the camera that I was using was a loan camera from Fujifilm UK. So this is a camera that's had a lot of use and abuse over the years, I would imagine. The poor thing, it was quite beaten up and it performed absolutely fine. So if you're buying an X-T5 brand new or you already own one, it should perform the same, if not realistically better. So all this is so much to say that basically, as you can imagine, I bought an X-T5. It's in my hands. I bought an X-T5 in black. I bought it along with the 16 to 55 millimeter f2.8 lens. This is the version 2. So I've gone with the zoom lens and I kitted it out with a nice little 1/4 mist filter. But yes, this is my new daily camera. But yes, so that's it. I am moving over to an X-T5. Hopefully everyone doesn't scream and leave this channel, but predominantly now we'll be doing the same type of content. I'll just be doing it with an X-T5 instead of an X100VI. Final thoughts on this whole experience. As you can see, the fact I bought an X-T5, it's been an interesting journey. It's been a good journey. I definitely didn't expect the fact that I would go out and spend a lot of money buying a X-T5, but I'm glad that I did. Hopefully this personal experience has been useful. And I think hopefully if you're torn between the two cameras, this does help you. If you're torn between whether you should get an X-T5 or not, this video has helpful. Of course, this is just my personal experience and opinions. I'd be really curious to know if people have moved from an X-T5 to an X100VI and how they found it, have they stuck with it? So please do let me know in the comments. You have to understand, for me, this channel is built on an X100VI. So I'm definitely taking a big gamble here moving over to an X-T5, but it's a change that I think in the long run will be worth it. And I'd be interested to know what type of videos you'd like me to now make with an X-T5. What content would you find interesting to watch? But do not worry, I'm going to be sticking around with Fujifilm for the near future, as I don't think there's any other camera brands out there at the moment that realistically intrigue me. I just love that so much. I wish the X100VI did that. It's just so cool. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you all in the next video.